This week's episode of the And She Looked Up podcast is brought to you by Fine Lime Designs. If the name sounds familiar, that's because it's my design business and the work I do there helps make this podcast possible. If you love colorful and whimsical art prints, greeting cards, and journaling stickers, then head over to my Etsy shop for a delightful browse. Just search for Fine Lime, like the fruit, designs, all one word, on Etsy, or click the link in the show notes. And now, on with this week's episode. Welcome to the And She Looked Up podcast. Each week, we sit down with inspiring Canadian women who create for a living. We talk about their creative journeys and their best business tips, as well as the creative and business mindset issues all creative entrepreneurs struggle with. I'm your host, Melissa Hartfield, and after leaving a 20-year career in corporate retail, I've been happily self-employed for 12 years. I'm a graphic designer, an illustrator, and a multi-six-figure-a-year entrepreneur in the digital content space. This podcast is for the artists, the makers, and the creatives who want to find a way to make a living doing what they love. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the And She Looked Up podcast. As always, I'm your host, Melissa, and before we dive into this week's episode, just a couple of quick housekeeping things. First of all, next week's episode will be the last episode in season 3 of the podcast, and then I'll be taking a couple of months off over the summer, as I do every year, and we will be back with season 4 in September, the first Friday after Labor Day. And on that note, if you are a woman who lives in Canada and you either create for a living or you provide services for women who create for a living and you would like to be a guest on the show, I would love to hear from you. If you would like to pitch me to be on the show, you can reach me at andshelookedup@gmail.com, or, and this is the better option, head over to our website and in the main menu under the podcast tab, choose the Be a Guest option, and it will take you to a landing page that explains everything you need to know about being a guest on the show and has a form that lets you apply right there. You can tell me what you have in mind. I'd love to hear from you. We will begin recording episodes for the new season in late August, and we'll be recording throughout the fall. And if you're not somebody who is interested in being on the show, but you know somebody who would make a great guest, please pass this message on to them. I would love to hear from them too. Okay, so that is it in the housekeeping realm. And for today's episode, I wanted to do something. This is kind of a bit of a last minute episode, but I've been seeing so much chatter about this lately all over, and I've had conversations about this with my own entrepreneur and maker friends, and that is figuring out what to do in our businesses when we are facing a period of economic uncertainty. So I am sure that every single one of you has noticed that there are all kinds of things happening right now. We are dealing with supply chain issues and shortages. And I actually heard somebody on the news the other day saying that unless your order was already on the water, if you're having it shipped from overseas, you should not expect to see it until 2023, which is rather nerve-wracking if you order a lot of your raw materials or supplies from overseas and you haven't ordered for the upcoming holiday season yet. So we'll get into that. But there's other things going on too. You know, we have some significant conflicts and wars that are happening around the globe, and the impact from them is far-reaching in terms of being able to get product to market, in terms of energy supplies, sanctions that are happening. I am sure every single person in Canada has noticed the cost of gas is through the roof. I drove past my local gas station yesterday and it was $2.33 a liter. So, it's not cheap right now. You've also got things like high inflation, and that is leading to rising interest rates. And if you haven't been paying attention, the Bank of Canada has been very clear that interest rates will be going up continuously for the next little while. And that leads to people worrying about the cost of their mortgages going up. It leads to rents going up. So you've got housing, food, and fuel all going up in price, and that affects everything that we do. It affects everything else in the economy. If the cost of fuel goes up, the cost of shipping goes up. If the cost of shipping goes up, the cost of the product goes up. So we all know how this works. But at the same time, we're getting these messages that are a little bit mixed, like the fact that the economy is booming, and the unemployment rate for May was just announced last week, and it was 5.1%, which is the lowest it has ever been since they started recording unemployment rates in the early 1970s. Basically, when you have an unemployment rate of around 5, it means everybody who's looking for a job has a job. So that means there's more competition amongst employers, which leads to rising wages, which sounds like a good thing, and it is a good thing. The problem is wages are not rising at the same rate that inflation is rising. So even though people are getting paid more, it's still not enough to get ahead. We're still actually falling behind. So what we have right now is this perfect storm that leads to a lot of confusion and uncertainty, and it can be really nerve-wracking when you run your own business, particularly a creative business, because let's face it, what most of us do and what most of us provide is not a need, it's a want. And when costs are going up and people have to spend more and more on food and fuel and housing, that means that they have less disposable income to spend. And it means they're going to be much more discerning about where they spend that disposable income, if they have any. There's going to be a segment of the market out there that's not going to have any disposable income. And so what does that mean for all of us? And how can we prepare for this, and how can we adjust? And there's good news. There are lots of things that you can do. I think the first thing that we all need to take a good look at is our numbers. Knowing your numbers is crucial. It's crucial at any time in business, but it's particularly crucial when we're in a period where things are uncertain or volatile. And I'm not just talking about knowing your revenue numbers. Okay, you need to be looking at your profit. Are you actually profitable? And to know if you're profitable, you also need to be on top of your expenses and your costs. Are you on top of your expenses and your costs? Because a lot of us, and I may or may not be included in this number, have a tendency to leave all of that until it's tax time. And that's when we start cataloging all our expenses and summing everything up and looking at what we actually did for the year. We need to be doing that every month. Okay, by the 15th of the month, you should have all your numbers for the previous month ready to look at. And it was interesting because in one thread, Facebook thread that I was in a few weeks ago, several people said that one of the first costs that they were eliminating was going to be their bookkeeper. And to me, that is one of the last expenses that I would eliminate, because your bookkeeper is the person who can make sure that your finances are really tight and that you're on top of them. And even if you're the type of person who takes forever and puts doing off all the bookkeeping, if you have a bookkeeper, they'll be on top of it. They like numbers and reports and charts and doing all of that kind of stuff. So let them do their job. They can get you those reports. They can make sure you have those numbers, and they can also point out areas where you're overspending or where you're maybe not getting a return on investment in the way that you should. And so those are all really important things that we need to be paying really close attention to right now. If you're on top of those numbers, it makes it much easier to react if things are going badly. If you start to see a dip in sales one month, you can immediately start looking at where you can tweak things and evaluating your marketing and evaluating your costs and all of those types of things. If you leave it 3 or 4 months, by then you could have seen a serious decline in profitability, in revenue, all of those things. So stay on top of it. It gives you much more flexibility when you can react to changes quickly. I would also recommend paying down debt wherever you can right now. If you're carrying debt in your business on credit cards or a line of credit or anything like that, those interest rates are going to be going up. And that means it's going to cost more to service that debt. And that is going to take more away from your business. So if you are able to right now, I would absolutely pay down debt wherever you can, where you don't have a locked-in interest rate. So, you might have a car loan that has a locked-in interest rate for the life of the loan. That's fine. But things that have variable interest rates are where you really need to pay attention. If possible, have a cash reserve. I know it can be really hard to just grow a cash reserve when things are tight, but if you can, start putting some money aside if you haven't already and start building a cash reserve. You just never know when you might need it. You can also call this an emergency fund. You can have a personal emergency fund, but you can also have an emergency fund for your business. There's nothing wrong with that. And if you don't have one, start building one, even if it's only just putting $50 aside a month. By the end of the year, $50 is $600. If you can put more aside, put more aside. But it's always good, especially with the price of raw materials going up, or if you want to create a new product, but you need to pre-buy your materials, having that cash reserve can be super duper helpful. Last but not least, when it comes to evaluating and to knowing your numbers, I would also really strongly recommend that you take time every month right now to evaluate your pricing. This isn't something that most of us would normally do every month. It's something we would do once, maybe twice a year. But the way the cost of materials and goods is going up right now, it is something that you may actually need to do every month. If you notice things are getting more and more expensive every time you buy them, you need to keep on top of your pricing, because you don't want to slip into an area where you're no longer profitable or barely profitable. You want to make sure that you're still able to keep going. It's no good if you're not making a profit. Business can't survive that way. I would also take a look at your marketing and your return on investment numbers and your revenue source numbers, like all those other numbers outside of the actual dollars and cents behind expenses and profits and revenue. Do you know where the vast majority of your revenue comes from? Do you know, is it through social media? Is it through Etsy? Is it through local marketing and local markets? Do you have a spreadsheet that shows you what percentage of your revenue comes from each of those different streams every month? And can you lean further in to the ones that are doing well right now? I know I've heard from so many people, and I'm experiencing this myself. Etsy is a struggle for a lot of us right now. The numbers are not great. I had a fantastic first couple of months of the year. I have actually exceeded what I sold last year for the full year, and it's only the second week of June. But the last 2 months of sales have been virtually non-existent, like nothing. And this month is not looking great either. So, I am looking at other places where I can sell my product, and I'm leaning into the services side of my business, which is doing quite well right now. But the actual physical product is a challenge at the moment, and I need to reevaluate a lot of different pieces in that. And so that might be something that you need to do as well. You need to look at your marketing return on investment. If you are spending a ton of time making Instagram reels right now, I really hope that is turning into sales for you. If it's not, you need to think about where you're putting your time. It might be better for you and for your business to put your time somewhere else at the moment. I'm not saying abandon your marketing channels. I'm going to get to that in a minute too. but I am saying know which ones are bringing in the revenue. And of course, the most obvious area where you need to pay some really close attention right now are your expenses are, I think. You want to take a really good look at your expenses. You want to know how much you're spending on everything and look at where you can make some changes. Obviously, the first thing that most of us do when we are struggling financially is we cut expenses. And you want to do that, but you want to be judicious about it. So you really want to evaluate every expense that you have. Some of them you don't want to cut. And we're going to talk about marketing in a minute. Marketing is often where people cut first, and I'm not saying that you may not need to cut back on it, but you definitely don't want to eliminate your marketing budget. You need to make sure that you're still getting in front of people who do have money and who do want to buy from you. But you need to look at all of your expenses. So you need to look at things like your hosting fees, your software as a service fees. So that would be things like Canva or Adobe Photoshop, or paid versions of apps that you might use, streaming services if you use those within your business. Those are all things you want to take a look at. You want to take a look at the cost of your raw materials. Can you get what you're using somewhere else for less money? Can you switch to a different raw material that's less expensive? Or that maybe the one thing that is hitting people really hard right now is shipping costs. I mean, shipping costs from overseas has gone up dramatically. And if there's a way that you can maybe find what you need locally, then maybe that's a good idea for you. But you need to look at all of your expenses and you need to see what you can cut and what you can keep and which ones you need to monitor. And I would strongly suggest monitoring things at first and just really get a sense of whether you're getting a return on investment and what would happen to your business if you eliminated that expense before you actually just go out and start cutting things with reckless abandon. But very often, if you haven't looked at your expenses for a while, you will discover something that you forgot you were even paying for and you're not using it at all. And if that's the case, then it's time to get rid of it. Okay, so I think those are the basics I would be looking at when it comes to your numbers and your finances. Those are the ones you want to stay on top of, and you want to be revisiting them, like I said, really regularly right now. Don't leave it, don't put it off, because it's just something I don't think any of us can afford to do right now. I know it's not our favorite thing, and I know that sometimes when you have that gut feeling that things aren't going well, it can be really scary to look at your numbers, and you can put it off, but I really do encourage you to stay on top of it so that if something isn't going quite right, you have the opportunity to fix it before it turns into a disaster. Okay, so number 2 on the list is marketing. One of the first things that most companies do when it comes to economic instability or an economic downturn is they cut back on their marketing dollars. And I think this is a mistake. When things aren't going well, that's when you want to double down on your marketing, particularly if all the people around you are pulling back. You want to stay active in your customer's mind. They may not have money to spend with you right now, but if you disappear from their radar because you're assuming they don't have money to spend, you are going to make it very difficult for yourself to reinsert yourselves when things are good. They're going to have moved on to somebody else who was marketing to them during a downturn. So don't stop your marketing. If anything, I would double down on your marketing efforts while other people are pulling back. You want to, first of all, use your list, use your email list. I hope you have an email list. If you don't have an email list, start one today. Talked about this many, many times. Start a list today. Use your list to keep talking to your customers. You don't have to be hard selling to them in every single email. In fact, you shouldn't be hard selling to them in every single email. But use that list to keep talking to them. Show up in their inbox once a week or once a month or whatever you feel comfortable with. I wouldn't do less than once a month if you can, but at least once a month. And just talk to them. Make your emails fun. Absolutely do a soft sell. Remind them of what you've got going on that fits the season. But there's other things you can do. Share ways that they can get more out of your products. Everybody's looking for ways to make things last longer right now, or to cut corners financially. So if you can give them ways that they can use your product to save money, or that they can use your product to, or ways that they can get more out of your product, do it. Maybe you're a candle maker and there's ways that they can use your products so that the wicks last longer, or so that they burn slower, or I don't know, I don't use candles very much, but maybe you've got some tips on how they can get more value out of that candle. Show them the value in your products. If you are a jewelry maker, maybe give them tips on how to clean the jewelry that you make so that it stays in great shape and it lasts them longer. I sell greeting cards, so maybe one of the things I could do is market greeting cards as a really budget-friendly way to stay in touch with family and friends that's still fun, like send a letter in the mail and decorate it with some stickers and bring a little joy to somebody for just the cost of a postage stamp and one of my cards. So really think about different ways that you can show that you can give your customers some kind of value proposition, or that they can get more out of it. Maybe you sell hand-tufted pillows. This is one of my favorite examples, hand-tufted pillows. But maybe you could talk about how you can clean those pillows, or give people some ideas of how you can freshen up your decor on a budget, or how you can reuse items already in your home to give a new look to your home. Focus on the 3 R's, reuse, repurpose, recycle. And see if you can give your customers different ways that they can use those 3 R's that are related to what you sell. Another thing you can do is run some fun challenges through email or through social media that relate to your product in some way. Challenges can be a really, really great way to get people involved. They don't have to buy anything. You don't have to sell anything, but at the same time, it keeps you connected to those people. You're building a community around your business, and communities tend to be very loyal. And when they do have money, they will come to you and they will spend it with you. So I got an idea for a really cool pen pal challenge that I'm thinking about that I think would be a great fit for my audience. But there's all kinds of different things that you can do. And it's a great way to give yourself a reason to drop into their inbox a little more frequently. The other nice thing with email is that other than the cost of your time, it's a free marketing platform. I mean, if you have subscribers over a certain amount, you are paying for your email newsletter platform that you're on, but you're paying for that anyway. So this isn't an additional expense that you're incurring. It's an expense that you have been incurring. So it's not like going out and deciding to run Facebook ads when you haven't run Facebook ads before and incurring additional expense. So make use of it. You are paying that monthly fee for your email provider. So do something that makes it worth that monthly fee. Social media is also free. And I'm not talking about running ads, but I'm talking about, just using Instagram or your Facebook page or Pinterest or any of these platforms. They're free other than the cost of your time. Yes, it can be a real struggle to get seen, but some people will see you. So lean into the channels that make sense for you. As I mentioned earlier, when it comes to your marketing, you want to know where your sales are coming from. If you can see that you are getting a ton of sales through Instagram, double down on your Instagram efforts. If Facebook is more where your people are, double down on your Facebook. You might want to try a new platform, see if it brings something in for you, if it does something for you. You never know, but what's the word I'm looking for? You want to be strategic about it, I guess is the best word. You want to be strategic about it. You want to make sure that the efforts you're putting in are showing you some results. Another great one that you can try is to team up with other makers or artists and collaborate. Let's say you're my candle maker over here, and let's say the hand-tufted pillow person is over there. What if the two of you teamed up for a Christmas gift basket or a gift box where they get a candle and a pillow together, and you make the scent complementary with the pattern of the pillow or something like that. Get creative. This is what we're good at. We're good at being creative. But by teaming up and collaborating, you both get access to each other's audiences, and it's a possibility for you to make new sales. There's also a possibility that you might be able to have more flexibility with the pricing of the bundle when there's two items being sold together. And so that may make it more economical for your potential customer, and that might tempt them to open their wallet. So don't underestimate teaming up and collaborating. This is a great one to also do over the holiday season. So if you've got a product that you think would be complementary to somebody else that you know, reach out and ask them, what do you think? Should we do this? And pitch them and see what they say. But that can be a really great way to double down on your marketing. When it comes to marketing, I would also highly recommend going local and getting involved in your local community. If you don't do in-person markets, now might be the time to try and do in-person markets. I know quite a few people who have been struggling on online platforms recently have been having more success with in-person markets. I think there's a lot of pent-up demand as things have opened up, as the pandemic has calmed down, and people are just really excited to be out and doing things in person. And the type of products that most of us make are the type of products that people like to touch and feel and see in person. So this might be a great opportunity for you to find a new revenue stream or to diversify. And I'm just going to mention 2 episodes that we've done in the past that could be really helpful for this. One is episode 22, promoting your business outside of social media. That episode is just jam-packed with marketing ideas that you can explore that don't require you to be as active on social media. Another episode is episode 45, how to surprise and delight your customers. So these little extras are what can really make or break it when people are making a decision, but their money is tight. They might be looking at 2 different things, and instead of maybe buying both like they might have before, now they can only buy one. So what is it about your business that is going to tip them over the edge and choose you? So if you can think of different ways that you can surprise and delight your customers, that's going to give you a little bit of an edge. The last one on my list is evaluating your product offerings. And this is bigger than it sounds. The first thing you need to do when it comes to evaluating your product offerings is you need to make sure that you're priced to be profitable. So I kind of mentioned this when I was talking about knowing your numbers. And this is really important when you're looking at the products that you create or make and sell, and making sure they're priced to be profitable. Are your products priced to be profitable? One of the common pricing methods is that your retail price, so you have your base cost of making a product, and that should include the cost of the raw materials, the cost of your time, and the cost of packaging. Not packaging to ship, just packaging to sell. Shipping should not be included in this. That is your base cost. You should double that cost to give you your wholesale cost for those of you who would like to sell your products in stores or through other channels where people get a cut. That's your wholesale cost. Your retail should be doubled again. So it's 2 by 2 by 2. And there's different variations on this for different industries, but by following that rule, you are going to ensure that you are priced profitably. You're going to make money. You're going to have a healthy business. So you want to make sure that all your products that you're creating right now are profitable. And this is going to be a challenge because, as I mentioned earlier, the cost of raw materials and goods is going up, and it doesn't look like that's going to change anytime in the next few months, certainly not before the holiday season. So you really need to stay on top of that monthly right now. You don't want to necessarily be changing the cost of your product every month, but you do want to have a threshold where you know you can't go beyond that without raising your prices to stay profitable. So if you go by that 2x2x2 method, you have a bit of a built-in cushion there that's going to allow you to keep your prices at the same price for a little bit longer. But as things start to go up, you're going to have to raise your prices. We're all having to raise our prices right now. So make sure you're profitable. And when you're factoring in your cost of your product, please make sure you're factoring in your time. If it takes you 3 hours to make something, minimum wage in BC, where I live, I think is $15.25 an hour. So if it takes you 3 hours to make something, that's like $47 right there for the cost of your time. You might not be charging the full cost of your time, but you do need to be aware what it would cost if you were to hire somebody to help you make a product. Okay, so keep that in mind when you are pricing your products and make sure that you are getting paid for your time. When it comes to your holiday assortment of products or launching new products, I would really be cautious on that right now. You might want to scale back, have fewer choices. So maybe if you make those hand-tufted pillows, maybe you're only offering 2 fabric options instead of 6 fabric options. If you make beaded earrings, maybe you're only offering 2 different styles instead of 10 different styles. So you might want to consider going deep instead of wide. I would seriously take a look at which of my products are my best sellers. For me, I don't even know how many cards I sell now, but I have a lot of different cards. But if I take a really good look at which ones sell the most, there's 5 that really stand out over and over again every single month. Those are my best sellers. Those are the ones that I tend to lean into. And I have one illustration. It's my pink typewriter that does very well on everything. It does very well as a print. It does well as a card. It does well as a sticker. So for me, when I launched notepads last year, obviously the typewriter was one of the first designs that I chose to create a notepad with, because it's one that I know sells pretty much regardless of what I stick it on. So take a look at what you do. Do you have a few different designs or a few different models or a few different items that do really well for you? And how can you go a little deeper on those? Maybe you could make a bundle for the holidays of, that could be something I could do, a bundle for writers or for the journalist in your life. And it's a typewriter notepad and a typewriter sticker and a typewriter print, all tied together with a typewriter card. But I hope you get the idea. You want to really focus on the things that do well for you right now. And if you're going to create new products, see if you can create new products on the backs of those items that do really well for you. I would also consider looking at creating a new product or a couple of products that is more of an entry-level product, particularly if you are somebody who makes, let's say, high-end jewelry or high-end pottery or anything where people are essentially making an investment. This could also be if you do large scale paintings. We have Heather on the show regularly. She does large canvas paintings. But one of the things she's done in the last year to make her work more accessible for people who don't have the budget for a large painting is she has created some smaller canvases. She has also created some prints on her work that sell for much less than an original painting. So start thinking of ways that you can maybe repurpose designs or art that you've already created at a lower price point, or start thinking of what you could make that is a little bit more affordable. It's almost like a value priced line or a budget friendly line, but something that lets people buy from you when maybe they wouldn't under ordinary circumstances because of finances. So If you saw the Netflix series, Emily Goes to Paris, we've referenced this one before, where she has the designer's keychain on her purse, and she talks to him about how when she was in high school and she couldn't afford haute couture, that keychain was a way that she could still access what that designer creates. It let her in at a very basic entry level way, but it let her feel like she could be part of the club. So take a look at what you could make for this holiday season or create that isn't as expensive as maybe some of your other pieces. That gives people something that opens you up to a different market. Something else that I mentioned a little bit earlier, but I also want to talk about it under talking about offerings, is bundling items for a discount. So I mentioned earlier bundling items with another creator, collaborating, but you can also bundle your own items. You know how when you go to buy, say, a bottle of perfume for your mom's birthday or for yourself, and that single bottle of perfume costs maybe $100. But if you wait until Christmas, all of a sudden the box sets come out. You know the ones I'm talking about. They're stacked to the ceiling in any cosmetics department, in any drugstore, in any department store in the holiday season. And you not only get the perfume, but you get the body lotion and you get the body spray and, a bunch of stuff. And the price is always lower than what it cost for the actual single bottle of perfume. It's a much better deal. And the reason it's a better deal is because that product, when it's priced to be sold alone, is priced very differently than how it's priced when it's put together in a bundle. It's often much more economical to bundle items together and still get a really healthy profit margin at a lower retail cost. So that's something you might want to take a look at. Which of your items could you bundle together? How could you make a gift box or a gift basket using your products? This is the same sort of pricing strategy when you belong to a subscription service. So when you get a subscription box, the box might cost you $25, but it's a $65 value at retail. What do you sell that you could potentially bundle together, both on your own website, on Etsy, in person, at markets? What could it be? Take a look at what you offer and see if any of those things could be bundled together. If you can't find a good way to bundle things together, think about what you could create or add to your offerings this season that you could bundle. Maybe you create something new this year that is specifically to bundle with another product that you already make. So for me, I do greeting cards and stickers. Those two actually go together really, really well. So that's something that I could easily bundle together. Next up, under evaluating your offerings, I talked about this when it comes to our finances, but you also really want to take a very close look right now at your suppliers. Okay, this is something you want to really get dialed into. Where do your supplies come from? If they are coming from overseas right now, that is a challenge, okay? It's a challenge just getting things here in a timely manner. Shipping rates have gone up an exorbitant amount. And if the shipping rate goes up, you have to build that into the cost of the raw material because that's how much it's costing you now. And at some point, you're going to have to pass that cost on to your customer. Is it possible for you to change suppliers and find what you need closer to home so that maybe your shipping isn't as expensive? I know one of the things that is a challenge for us in Canada here is when we're getting supplies from the US, customs and duty can hit and it can be pricey. Maybe you can find a Canadian supplier that can get it to you at a cheaper price. One of the things I have found is that sometimes when I ordered from a Canadian supplier, the actual price of the item is more expensive. But if I would order that same item from overseas or from the US, by the time I factor in the cost of shipping, taxes, and duty, it's actually more than if I had bought it from the Canadian supplier with the higher price tag. So you want to take a really good look at that, particularly right now while shipping costs are wild. But keep in mind that it's very likely that the wholesaler that you are purchasing from in Canada, they may very well be getting their product from overseas that they're selling to you. So, this is why it's really important. I am constantly looking for new paper sources and new packaging sources, not necessarily to change from who I'm using, but just to know what pricing is elsewhere and what's available elsewhere, and just deciding if it's worth it for me to change. But it's just always a good idea to know what else is out there and what it costs, and to just constantly be reevaluating. If you can keep your costs lower, the longer you can keep your costs low, the longer it will be before you have to make a price increase. And yeah, don't forget to look at those shipping costs. Because just some of the numbers I've heard, most of what I get comes from Canada or the US. I don't really order anything from overseas, but just hearing how much people who, they might have been paying $100 shipping from overseas, and now they're paying $700 shipping. Like, it's crazy. Another thing that's worked really successfully for me, and I know a few other people who are doing this too, look at what you have in your supply cupboard and see what you could create from that. I've talked about this before. I go through my supply closet a couple times a year, and I go and see what I've got, what kind of paper stock I have, how can I use it, packaging, all those things. And I just look, I'm just somebody who likes to make sure I use everything wherever possible. See what you've got. I have created a new line of cards with some craft card stock that I had that I didn't think I would ever use, but I was like, you know what, I'm going to create some new cards. And I did, and it was a different look for me, and they've proven to be really popular. So popular that I actually bought new craft card stock yesterday so that I could keep those products going. But yeah, look at what else you've got in your supply cupboard, and just see if there's ways that you can use that in a new product, or do something with it. Use all that stuff up. You've already paid for it. It's just sitting there. It's not making you any money. So before you look to creating a new product from completely new supplies, see what you can use up that you already have. Look at other revenue streams for your products. Like, if you're only selling on Etsy, maybe it's time to open your own website, or maybe it's time to do some in-person markets. If you've only ever sold in person, maybe now is the time to open an Etsy shop or your own website. Start thinking about different ways that you can create new revenue streams. New revenue streams might even be opening a second Etsy shop, or creating a new category on your Etsy shop. Let's say, for me as a graphic designer, another revenue stream that I could very easily activate is digital downloads. Is that something you can do for your products? Let's say that you make things, you're a Cricut wizard, and you create amazing tumblers and coasters from your own original designs. Could you turn those original designs into SVG files and sell them as digital downloads so that other people can make their own tumblers or their own t-shirts? That's a great way to create an entry-level price point. You can sell a digital download for $5, whereas to buy one of your t-shirts might cost $35. So you're giving people another entry point into working with you. I will just caution you, though, with digital downloads, you need to make sure that you are selling your own original designs. You can't sell a design that you have purchased from somebody else, at least not without a license agreement. So be very careful with that. But if it's a design that's your original and you've come up with it yourself, then you can sell those as digital downloads. There are other places besides Etsy that you can sell those. You can sell them on Creative Market. That's a great place to sell digital files. So yeah, look at different ways that you can diversify. Really give it a think. If you're a crocheter, maybe you can sell crochet patterns. If you one of the things that I'm seeing that's really popular right now is crocheted stuffed animals. So you've seen like these little stuffies. They're super, super adorable. If you're having really good luck selling those, maybe you would also have good luck selling your patterns. That's something to think about. You can sell those as a digital download, or you can even print them up and sell them at markets. Have like a little printed pattern package or something and sell them. You could do a whole menagerie of different ones, and people could buy the whole set and go home and crochet on their own. If you sell hand-dyed yarn, that's another great place to sell patterns, where you could sell your own patterns. People who buy yarn are going to use it to knit or crochet, so maybe you could create a selection of patterns that work really well with the type of wool that you produce. So start thinking about little ways that you can add on or create a new type of product that people maybe aren't used to seeing you sell. And another episode that I'm going to suggest that you check out is episode 48. What could you do today that would earn you $100? So this is a really interesting episode that Heather and I recorded quite a while ago. And it's really about thinking outside of the box when it comes to selling what we create. And I got this idea from Kathleen Shannon, who used to be one of the co-hosts of the Being Boss podcast. And she used to talk about this regularly, how whenever she was stuck or she needed some extra cash or a cash infusion, she would sit down and she would think, what could I do right now that could earn me $100? And if you sit down and think about it that way, that has proven to be a really great inspiration trigger for me, for lack of a better word, is if I sit down and think right now, like, what could I do that could make me $100 today? It almost always leads me to a new product idea. So that's a great episode to listen to if you are trying to think of something that you could do that could move the needle a little bit right now. We give you lots of ideas that you can use. Feel free to use them all if it helps you increase your revenue. So the bottom line of this episode is that right now, I think it's really important that we are all hyper aware of what's going on in our businesses. That means knowing your numbers, understanding how your marketing efforts are performing, what kind of return on investment you're getting in them, looking at our product offerings, and making sure that we are filling in cracks and gaps wherever they might be, and making sure that we are staying on top of our numbers so that we can continue to be profitable. If you have a profitable business, it goes much further to making sure you have a healthy business. And healthy businesses are much better at withstanding economic volatility. So you want to stay on top of numbers, and that allows you to stay flexible. And if you can stay flexible, you have a much better chance of navigating when things are really stressful and out of whack. And the last tip I'm going to leave you with is, when things are like this, just remember, it's not you. It's not that your products are awful. I see this all the time. My sales are down. People must not like my product. It's not always about us. Right now, it's about the people who are buying from us, and just understanding that a lot more people are under financial stress or are going to be under financial stress. And so they're being very cautious right now. And we know that because we're in the same boat. We're being cautious too. So just remember that there's more going on here than just what you're creating. But if you can stay in tune with your customers and stay on top of your numbers and keep yourself nimble and flexible and keep the finances tight, you have a really good shot of still being just fine. Just stay on top of things. That's the biggest piece of advice I can give you right now. Just stay on top of things and keep an ear on what's going on in the news. Listen to the news. Listen to the financial reports. I know for a lot of us it's boring, but it gives you a really good idea of what's going on right now and allows you to be proactive in your business rather than falling into a hole that's really hard to get out of. So that's it for this week, everyone. I hope this was useful. It's something I've been thinking about a lot. I know it's something that so many people I know are thinking about. I'm sure it's something you're thinking about. And if you have other suggestions for ways that people in the creative arts can navigate economic uncertainty in their business, I'd love to hear them. Share them with me on Instagram, and she looked up, and or send me an email and let me know what you're doing. I'd love to hear what is working for you right now. So next week's episode is going to be the last episode of the season. It's going to be a really fun one. Heather Travis is going to be here. The next week episode was actually her idea. And she had to talk me into it, but I'm glad she did, because we had so much fun recording it, and it's a very lighthearted episode. We had a lot of giggles, and I really hope that you all enjoy it. So until then, that's it for this week, and I will see you all next week. Bye, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us for the And She Looked Up Creative Hour. If you're looking for links or resources mentioned in this episode, you can find detailed show notes on our website at andshелookedup.com. While you're there, be sure to sign up for our newsletter for more business tips, profiles of inspiring Canadian creative women, and so much more. If you enjoyed this episode, please be sure to subscribe to the show via your podcast app of choice so you never miss an episode. We always love to hear from you, so we'd love it if you'd leave us a review through iTunes or Apple Podcasts. Drop us a note via our website at andshелookedup.com, or come say hi on Instagram at andshелookedup. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next week.